Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Steel Target Paint Podcast. I'm Jeff Jones, and my partner in crime,
Steve Foster.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a bunch of things tonight, but first thing we're going to do is what we always do. Steve, you been doing any shooting?
You know, Jeff, I've been doing some practicing. I can't resist the urge, Jeff. I can't.
Do it. Where you been practicing?
At the home range. I said to myself, Steve, you know what? I think people are sick and tired. Besides Tom Nealon, he's not sick and tired of it. Talk about the home range. So I was gonna give it a bye this week, but sorry about that.
Maybe next time. Some things never change, and some things never get old. So that's one of them.
So I've been doing some practicing. How about you, Jeff? You've been shooting?
I shot the Area 6 match this weekend over in Volusia County, hosted by Extreme GM, which is Manny Bragg and Gorka Ibanez.
Sweet. Let's talk a little bit about that. I saw some posts out on Facebook. It seems like it's been the year for wet matches, huh?
Yes. Friday, I was able to shoot and get 2 sessions in, and it was dry. Saturday, about halfway through the first session, I was in my hip waders, staying dry.
I saw,
which, for steel matches isn't so bad. There's only one stage you got to move. It's only 6 feet. So shooting a pair of, actually they're more like lineman boots, but it didn't affect me in one bit.
Yeah, I saw you over there with Dan Deeney. What's up, Paul? I'm sure he listens.
Yeah, that was Sunday, but Saturday afternoon, the rain came down pretty hard. Slight delay, not too bad. Nobody likes to shoot in the rain, especially if they're shooting a dot. Your MOA turns into about a 30 with a nice starburst if you get a good drip on the reticle. But we made it through, and then Sunday was no rain whatsoever, but Volusia is known for having some drainage problems, which they changed ownerships there, and Gorka and Lloyd are now the owners, and they are reworking all the bays and the drive into the range, and they're going to have it all worked out, so it's going to be top notch, and so we're really excited for that.
Let me ask you this, Jeff. When you talk about shooting in the rain and all that kind of jazz, and Florida, it's kind of flip of a coin in the afternoon if it's going to rain or not, or at least for a little bit. Does that make any sort of impact on what guns you shoot, or did you re-squad some of your guns and maybe shoot irons in the rain? Or
Good question, and I thought about that because I was shooting one iron gun. I shot limited, and I thought about shooting that in the afternoon, and I decided to stick with my plan, stick with the guns that I had chose when I wanted to shoot them. Because I felt that was the best way I was going to get my best finishes. And so I stayed that way. I know a lot of people, and it's terrible to shoot in the rain with a dot, but what I found, and I've seen a lot of people, Georgia is a perfect example, and you were at that match, might not have been your best times, but you still put down very solid times shooting in the rain. And sometimes I feel you almost get more focused because you've got that extra element that you've got to deal with.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Chris and I have talked about this more than a couple times because we both had really good matches at the Strong Point facility. I'm not sure if they're going to do a match next year. I'll reach out to Scott and see if they're going to do one. There's been a lot of questions on social media about the schedule for 2019 that's come up, but it is interesting. And talking with Chris a little bit at that match, and even going into this weekend, he said, "No, we'll switch some guns up." So I think he shot his iron sight guns that afternoon. But holy cow, I just pulled up the scores from the Area 6.
Yeah, Chris shot a fantastic match. He did.
Yeah, he's got the top 4 overall. So it's Chris Barrett, Steve Lentz. He kind of looks like Chris Barrett, and then Chris Barrett.
Yeah, Steve Lentz and Chris Barrett look the same if Chris Barrett's in front of a funhouse mirror. Okay.
Steve Lentz, his twins Goldberg. Steve's a
I
great
think
guy.
you could put 3 Chris Barretts in a Steve Lentz. We love you, Steve. We're only kidding. No, but it was a really good match. It stayed on time, which is always a plus. You know, the stages are set up correctly, which again is always something you expect in an area match. ROs were solid, you know, and we had a great time. You know, it was a relatively well-attended match. I think the final number was 139 shooters. And I do have some news that was announced at that match by Manny. And so everyone who wasn't at that match, you're hearing it here. The Area 6 match is going to be at the CMP in Talladega next year.
Glorious.
When? Don't know.
I love shooting at Talladega. It's like home away from home.
Yep, it's a very nice range. I don't know when. I don't know which organization is running it, but we were told it's going to be at the CMP next year. So that should bring some more shooters in, just because I think there's a more concentrated number of shooters in that area compared to down here in Florida.
Hey, Jeff, I got some great news. I talked with Chris's manager, a.k.a. Jeff/Dad. What's up, Jeff? We're going to have Chris Barrett on the podcast next week.
All right. I love it. We'll get to talk to him, about, you know, his journey and his, you know, what he's done to get where he is. And hopefully that can help some of our listeners.
I remember when I think it was Chase Orr a year ago or 2 years ago, he shot a 64 something rimfire rifle open, and at that same venue at the Strong Point facility. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, this is out of control. This is out of control. Chris Barrett had 4 times under 64. His PCC, his PCCO was a 60.65.
Yep.
That's the fastest PCCO time I've ever seen at a major match.
Yeah, he was en fuego. You know, a 10-11 on outer limits, you know, 821 on speed option, 682 on roundabout. I mean, I don't know where you squeeze out that other 65, but if there's a place for him to find it, he'll do it. You know 584 on smoking home.
Pendulum, Jeff, 713.
713.
Well, I've seen him shoot outer limits. That's where he lost that 0.6 seconds. He can shoot that in 950. Come on, Chris Barrett, tighten up a little bit.
He's dogging it.
He had a quarter second.
Okay, you know, it was muddy. It was wet. We got to give the kid a break.
I know, right? Get off my back.
There's a lot of good shooters there. I mean, you mentioned Dandini, Nealon, they were there. Steve Lentz. I was fortunate enough to come home with some senior trophies. It's good to get old. You know, I let all the kids win the regular stuff, and I'll try to weave my way into the senior division titles. Try to bring home my wood there, but there was a lot of good stuff, a lot of good shooters, a lot of good fun, good vibe, all around a good time, and a lot of people from out of town. Rich LaBraca came down from New Jersey. Dave Wildin and his wife came down from Buffalo, New York.
I know. I was looking forward to seeing those guys again. I met them over here at the U.S. Steel Shoot over at South River Gun Club here in Covington, Georgia. I was looking forward to meet up with those guys. Rick Wynn and his wife, I'm sure, were there. R.O.ing and shooting. Lori O'Rear was there, and that's cool.
Yeah, you saw a lot of the Florida regulars there, which was good.
Yeah, I love shooting down in Florida. It was a good group of people. Gordon was there with his girlfriend Kelly. Man, those Florida State guys. Yeah, that's cool. They shot pretty well. Well, that's good.
Yeah, she was funny. We got. I'll tell you a little secret story about her. She got to outer limits and it was very wet. The back right corner was underwater because everybody stands there and tamps it down, and of course the rain collected there. And she looked at me and she's like, "What's the penalty if I just stand in the middle?" I said, "It's 4 seconds of string." She's like, "Okay, I think I'm going to stand in the middle." And she shot before me. And so as I was walking off and I got back to my cart and I was reloading and I turned and she was taking the movement. I think the 4 seconds was a little too much of a penalty for her. And she said,
right.
I can do this. So in my heart, I was proud of her for taking it off. And it really wasn't that bad. It wasn't like you're on ice. You know, it was just a little muddy.
Sure. Well, A funny story about Kelly Perez. She's a great person. I've shot a couple of matches with her and Gordon. And fun fact about Kelly, any sort of, if it's an online contest, giveaway, if it's a random draw, Kelly's the person you need to, like, let her touch your ticket because she wins everything, Jeff. I think she was.
Oh, is she the lucky duck?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I was kind of teasing her at the Mississippi State Steel Challenge match. She won like 3 online giveaways in like a week. It was crazy. It was crazy.
Nice.
Yeah, good people.
Nice. So I was surfing the web and looking at Facebook, and I noticed that you put up the second post of a two-part article regarding the weight of your gun. And so I thought we'd talk a little bit, maybe a little about the first one and talk about the second one on this podcast. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good, Jeff. It's an interesting and heavily debated topic in the shooting sports. And kind of the first article was centered a little bit around kind of the eye-opening experience I had shooting my JP GMR 13 and 15 that both have 15-inch hand guards, which aren't really heavy, so to speak. But with both those guns, I was shooting a 16-inch barrel with a compensator. And I apologize, I should look up the physics around this, but having that extra weight at the end of the gun, it makes it a little bit heavier to swing it.
Yep.
So to speak. There's something I'm sure there's some physics properties involved there. But what the end result is, man, I was tired shooting that gun. There's certain stages. I think it was 2017. I shot under 8 seconds for the first time in PCC. I don't think anybody was doing it back then, but I shot like a 7 something at the Alabama State Steel Challenge match, and that landed me for a record for, I don't know, probably a year and a half or so, the fastest time I ever shot in PCC. And that's with I think that gun was right about 7 pounds or maybe 7.25 with an optic. And then, JP, I told those guys early on, I said, we need to kind of lighten this bad boy up just a little bit because not everybody's as buff and strong as me. No, I'm just kidding. I'll tell you about Colby Pavlock and his rifle here in a second. Holy cow, I picked that thing up at the World Rimfire match.
Yep.
He says it's 8 pounds. He's lying. That thing's got to be at least 10 or 12 pounds. But anyway, we'll get into that here in a second. But anyway, so I was talking to JP guys about, what we could do and so on and so forth. And so they came up with that ultra lightweight barrel. Even the 14.5-inch, because, when I got Chris hooked up with JP and, they got him a gun and all that kind of stuff, is the ultra lightweight barrel wasn't around yet. So we got a 14.5-inch pinned barrel with a comp. Even that gun, it feels like it's a pound lighter just because of the swinging motion, and Chris shoots it exceptionally well. And then even with the ultra lightweight barrel, it probably is, maybe a half a pound or 0.75 pounds lighter than the 16-inch GMR 15, my green gun that I have. And, we talked a little bit about it on the podcast, but within the first, I think it was by the second range session, or I'm sorry, the second local match that I shot, and we only shoot 6 stages, and typically they're the same 6 stages. And so I shot 6 personal best just because of, having a little bit of extra weight out of the front end and just being a little bit lighter. And so the first article talked a little bit about that. And then I went into Wildin USA. They've been selling some comps and some barrels and so on and so forth. And Todd reached out to me and said, "Hey, man, you want to try one of my barrels?" And I said, "Well, what's so special about it, Todd?" He said, "Dude, it's awesome." I said, "Oh, okay. That's not the first time I heard that." And I said, "Yeah, sure, man." So he actually sent me 2 barrels, and one I helped out a junior shooter with because she's a young lass, and not quite as strong to swing even a lightweight barrel. But what it is, it's an 11-ounce barrel, and it's about, I know Todd's probably going to cringe, it's probably right around a 5-inch barrel. It's got this somehow pressed on sleeve. So initially I thought the sleeve was aluminum and the shroud was aluminum, but actually it's a thin steel that he's turned way down. And so the all the weight of the barrel is back towards the shooter, and it's 11 ounces compared to other barrels that are 15 or 16 ounces that are lightweight. We're not into brand shaming here, Jeff.
Well,
So
that same thing is what's happening with the JP. I've actually got one on
yeah,
order and waiting for my lightweight to come in. Is that it's not necessarily the half a pound that came off. It's where it came off, and it changes the
absolutely,
center of gravity of the gun.
absolutely, yep,
And it puts
exactly
that
right.
center of gravity more into where you're holding the gun, and you're you're twisting a lot less weight
Right, 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 right.
around. And I've when I first started, I well, I think the very first match I ever shot was in rimfire pistol iron, and I shot an M&P Compact 22.
Nice.
And after that, I realized I wanted to shoot a dot. And I went to the Smith and Wesson Victory because I was a USPSA shooter first, and had heavy guns, and always liked a heavy gun. And so I've always been a proponent of having a heavier gun when it comes to pistols. Now with rifles, it varies. I know a lot of people have gone to. I mean, there are some PCCs out there that are barely over 5 pounds.
Right.
And I know a lot of people that shoot those, mostly women, because it's lighter for them to hold. And I think that's perfect. I like to have a little meat under my arm when I'm shooting. I think I can stop the gun faster. And it sounds like an oxymoron, but that's what you end up doing in this game is you stop fast. Whether you're coming off a plate and moving on in the same direction or doing a direction change, you have to stop fast. And I think I can do that a little better with a heavier gun. That being said, I'm very excited about shooting the lightweight because I'm going to have just a little less weight, and it's going to be redistributed towards the center of the gun. And I think I'm going to be able to snap that gun and hopefully have the same success you have.
Yeah, and Jeff, I think that there's a fine balance back to the PCC, and I'll get back to the Wildin thing here in a second, their barrel. But with the PCC, and Wildin USA makes a great PCC barrel as well, and I think it's pretty affordable, maybe $170 or something like that. But, when I went from a 16-inch barrel to the ultra lightweight, there was just a dash more sight interruption. So when we talk about the term, and I put it in the second installment, when we talk about the term return, meaning that as soon as you fire the trigger, where the gun returns back into battery, it's where the sights are at when the recoil is over. There's a slight more of a sight disruption that happens with the ultra lightweight barrel compared to my 16-inch barrel. I could probably shoot that thing with one hand, couldn't do it for long, but shoot it for one hand, and the dot really never moves.
Mm-hmm.
With the ultra lightweight, I found myself pulling in on the gun a decent amount to try to mitigate it, and I run the short stroke system with what they call the Slide 5. It's got 5 stainless weights on the buffer. I may try 1 tungsten and 4 stainless, but I've been afraid because it's just been running like an absolute sewing machine, and just to take a little off. But I do like that setup because it's a little bit more snappy, and I never feel like I'm waiting on the gun because my other gun, I was looking at my old SCS from my JP, my GMR 13, and it will run 950 feet per second bullets, 115 grain, but it's got 3 tungsten and 1 stainless. I just took it out of my bag because I was doing a little testing, if you will. And, it felt like the bolt was just a little bit sluggish, and it's a weird sensation. So instead of thinking about shooting and my target acquisition and processing that information, I was like, oh, is there something? No, okay, it's good. Now let me pull the trigger.
Right, it's drawing your attention away from what you need to focus on.
Yeah, and that split second, well, it may not seem like a big deal, but if it's 0.1, I mean, there are major championships out there that are determined by half of a second or less. And we talked about it, not too long ago. The U.S. Steel shoot a couple of years ago, the top 3 guys were all within 0.5 seconds of one another. I mean, a total difference of the two. But
wait a minute. Sorry. Shameless plug. You mean the match that I got 3rd in?
No, it was the year before.
Oh, because the year after we had 3, 4, and 5. So Casey won it. Cole was 2nd. I was 3rd. Beat Ron Oliver by .07 seconds and
Wow.
was
Crazy.
ahead of Tony Martin by like .14. I mean, it was
Wow.
crazy. We were
That is
all right
crazy.
there.
Yep. So this Wildin Barrel, so I'm interested because of the results that I had with the JP. I mean, I shoot a fair amount, and to have that type of results instantaneous, I was like, man, I gotta do some. You can't really buy your game, so to speak, outside of having stuff that runs, but things feel differently based on your shooting tendencies. And so what I did was, I got this Wildin USA barrel, put it on my Technical Solutions X Ring, which is a light aluminum receiver. It's got a steel bolt and all that kind of stuff. Oh, you could definitely feel the difference in the weight. So you're only talking 4 or 5 ounces between the different barrels, but it's not just the 4 or 5 ounces. It's where the weight was from one barrel to another.
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked about that in the first one, and a small update on the Wildin USA barrel, and that's why we have good partners and relationships. And Todd's like, hey, shoot this thing and let me know what you think. So I was shooting it offhand at 35 yards. Thing was a friggin' tack driver, Jeff.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not a precision shooter anywhere even close to it, but, a 10-shot group, they're all right on top of each other at 35 yards. So, this thing's all right. Uh-oh, is that Todd calling you?
Sorry about that. You can edit that out.
That's okay. I think that's Todd. He wants to talk about his barrel.
He's listening. He's
That's
amazing.
Right. That's right. So after about 250 rounds, I was having a couple of failures to eject, and so in partnering with Todd, because I was running Ely Force, and that's what I run through my guns. And two things. One is that he's got a bent style chamber, and I didn't know anything about this sort of stuff, Jeff, but Todd's a lot smarter than me, and it's more of a precision match grade barrel, so that's why you get that type of accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent my barrel back to him, and he's putting a sporting chamber in it, which hopefully I don't mess this up. It's .00350 difference, and the human hair is .004. So it's less than a human hair is what he's reaming it out to be. And the other thing that we talked about, and it's going to be pretty cool, similar to my JP, he's actually going to lighten it up just a dash, and he's going to put in some porting in the front of the barrel. But the cool part about the barrel is with that shroud, it's got a hollow effect, so it's louder than, so you don't really need a comp. But he said it looked cool, and I'm like, hey, Todd, I'm into custom and looking cool, so why don't you do that and send it back to me? The other thing that I experienced with that barrel, and he's got a solution for it, so people that have bought them, listen up. He's got a foam piece that goes over the top, because that shroud, it does, when I say it gets hot, son, it gets hot probably after 200 rounds. It gets pretty warm to the touch. So I put some, I think it's silicone tape on mine,
Mm-hmm.
just to deflect a little bit of the heat. But anyway, so more tests to come on that. And then after getting my, if you didn't know, Jeff, I got a new CWA race gun.
Oh, we saw the post, and it's a beauty.
Oh, my gosh, Jeff, I swear to God, it is the nicest pistol I've ever shot.
Well, let's talk about the pistols for a second.
Yeah. Yep.
We did a good job on the rifles. You've shot a number of pistols through the years. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, when you first started, weren't you shooting a Buckmark?
Back in the day.
So you shot a number of different pistols. I know you own a bunch. And I'm guessing they all come in at different weights. The Buckmark's not known for being a heavy gun, is it?
No, it really isn't. But I put on a Tactical Solution barrel on both of them, so it lightened it up. And then the other thing that John at SJC did for me, and they were prototype, I put on 2 brass mag wells, so it offers a little bit of weight there. And I'm telling you what, Jeff, when you buff those things, they look like they're solid gold. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's a lighter top end type gun.
Right. So the CWA, what's that coming in weight wise?
So I put that bad boy on the scale with the optic, and as you see it, with the mag well, and not playing games, just took it and dropped it right on the scale. And a small disclaimer, my oldest daughter wants to be a guinea pig breeder. I mean, she breeds guinea pigs. Hey, Jeff, do you know anybody that needs a guinea pig? Because I got a couple.
I know a range they could run around on.
Oh, I do too.
Free range guinea pigs.
There you go. So she takes great care of her guinea pigs. She knows more about guinea pigs than any 6 people I've ever met. But anyway, she's got a little scale, so I threw it on her guinea pig scale, and it was exactly 41 ounces.
Yeah,
And
see, I see that now. I think a lot of people would consider that to be a heavy gun, and I'm thinking I would love that gun because I personally like a heavy pistol. I know you talked in the article about getting a Legion, and I have one as well, and I have a 320 X5. And personally, you know, I went out and I like the X5, and I shot that in a match. It's bone stock trigger. I did put the Go Guns gas pedal on it. Shot it in carry optics and shot it great. 2 weeks later, I had the Legion, did the exact same thing. Sorry, it wasn't carry optics. It was production. 2 weeks later, shot the production with the 320 X5 Legion, 6 personal bests. And I
that's
put
awesome.
it down. I mean, there's no way I got that much better in 2 weeks. So, you know, you look at only having changed one thing. It was the gun. And the gun weighs, I think, 10 ounces heavier. And it, even when you don't have a great grip, that weight really helps keep that gun down and keeps the dot on target, or the sights in this case.
Yeah, and that's exactly, you know, part of the because my other CWA gun, I apologize, it's been a little bit since I weighed it, but it's an all aluminum gun. It's a single stack 1911 frame, which is aluminum, and of course the slides are aluminum and what have you. So I think that gun's probably in the 33, 34 ounce. So it's a little bit on the lighter side, with a slide mounted optic and all that kind of jazz. And so I told Chet, you know, because I've shot other people's CWA guns, and I did have 2 of his early models when he said, hey, I'm going to start building 1911s and offering a full gun with his conversion kits. And so he sent me one with aluminum frame and then one with a steel frame, 1911. The steel one had a full length dust cover.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't put that bad boy on the scale, but it had to been 50 ounces. That thing was, I was like,
yeah, no weight limit in steel challenge.
No, that thing was like a boat anchor swinging it. And so, you know, it's interesting because you and I talked a long time about this, and, you know, Tom and Fish and those guys are like, man, you got to get one of these Legions. They're awesome. And so I made the mistake and went to a gun store and picked one up and racked the slide. I'm like, yeah, you're right, fellas. I need to get one, you know. Yeah, I got Jeff over here going, Steve, you got to get one. You got to get one. You got to shoot one. But it's very similar. You know, I'm not sure if you've weighed your Legion. That's probably somewhere in that same, you know,
43 and a half.
Yeah, yep, somewhere right in that range. And the appeal to me is that, you know, with the Legion, it's got that tungsten infused grip. So you got really the majority of the weight is sitting right in your hand. It's not reciprocating weight. And so with the CWA gun, so if you kind of look from the bottom up, the magwell is made out of aluminum, not a lot of weight. The grip itself, it's a double stack width grip, but it's a single, it takes a single stack magazine, the GSG magazine. And so that was honed or machined out of aluminum. The grip safety, actually, Chet corrected me, is actually made out of steel. I thought it was aluminum. But a lot of the other internal parts, you know, not a lot of weight. But with the 2011 platform, you know, you've got different options of what you make that the frame out of. And this one is steel. And I told him, I said, man, you know, I like a little bit more of the weight in my hands, because after I got my, you know, aluminum framed one with aluminum slide, I'm like, man, I wish I would have went with, you know, a steel grip, because it's just a little bit, it's a little bit heavier than like a 2245 light, but it still feels a little bit whippy in my hands. I love shooting, and I have to bear down on it. But what he did was he took, and I posted pictures in that blog post, where he took out sections of that frame to lighten it up a little bit on the front end and still have, you know, plenty of mass there to get a good feeling. And then, you know, it's got all the other trinkets on the side, but the slide, and he makes all these parts. That slide is made out of aluminum. It's got a steel barrel because you want it to stand the test of time. And then, there's not a lot of weight. So once you rack the slide on that thing, the reciprocating weight of the gun is virtually, it's negligible. And so part of the post that I put out there is out on YouTube. I did a slow-mo with it so you can kind of see the gun. The front of the gun barely moves. But what I talked about in the post is when you see the return of the optic is coming back, and it's going exactly back in the same exact spot every single time. And what that looks like as a shooter, when I pull that up on target, I squeeze the trigger as fast as I can. And it's like the dots barely moving on the target. Certainly not moving off the target, but barely on that target. And man, it's whew. I've got a couple of guns. Hopefully my wife's not listening, but
hopefully she doesn't sell them for what you told her you paid for.
Oh, amen to that, brother. I'm getting a new safe here in another week, so I'll tell you more about that another time. But so it's interesting. So I had speed option set up. So I went out and shot speed option, and I know you're kind of busting my chops on the last podcast, but overall I was shooting it, because it's not one of these things that you go out and shoot like 400 or 500 rounds and go, oh yeah, look at that, I shot speed option in 1.8 seconds every single
they're
time.
all blind squirrel runs.
Yeah,
you don't
right,
see all the
what I mean?
8 shots and 3 misses.
Yeah. So I went out there cold with the gun after I'd sighted it in a couple days previous and shot a couple rounds. So I waited 2 days, went out there and shot the gun, and on average I was right in that high 119 range. And it just, the only way to explain it is that when you shoot Steel Challenge a lot, so on and so forth, it's not that, that muscle memory and all that other nonsense. It's the dot or the gun is where you expect it to be when you're getting ready to, just before you pull the trigger.
Yep.
And so if you shoot it enough, over the course of time, you're swinging the gun, and the gun's exactly where it needs to be. And so it's the sight acquisition is extremely fast, and I do see the dot on every single shot. And it was just there. And I think what happens is with that little bit of extra weight in my hands, it was right where it should be, where with an all aluminum gun or a letter gun had a tendency to dance around a little bit. And so,
well, that's a concept that I've talked to a number of people about, specifically on the first shot, which generally I just call the draw. Yes, we don't draw with a rimfire. We don't draw with a PCC, but I still call it the draw because it makes it easy. And I see so many people thinking they've got to race as fast as they can to the first plate. It's not a bad concept. The problem is most of them drive past it.
Yeah.
And then they have to come back. And when you get them to settle down and go, you get them to stop and think, and you show them the gun has to stop. For those that remember, I guess it's geometry or whatever, X and Y motion are independent. So in most every instance, take a speed option, take a accelerator. Your first motion after shooting is 180-degree direction change on the X-axis, which means the gun has to come to stop, at least going left to right.
Right.
And probably stopping up to down, because as you're bringing it up, once it's at the height of the plates, unless you're shooting pendulum, the gun doesn't need to come down anymore. It's at the right height if the stage is set up correctly. So the gun's got to stop. So I try to get people to understand that as you're bringing the gun up, the real goal is to pull the trigger at the same time you're stopping the gun, and then learn how to do that fast.
Yep.
And it's the same kind of thing you're talking about here, where, again, with the transitions, the gun, the dot, the sights are there when you expect them to be there.
And, it's with that, speed option's a great stage to practice or trial that on, because it's such a wide transition, and you have got some longer shots. So you got some fast shots and you got some medium shots and the slow shot in there. But, then I was like, okay, now let's move on to a stage that's a little bit quicker. So I threw a roundabout because I didn't want to lug any 18 by 24. Jeff, I got lazy. I'm just saying, brother. So I set up roundabout, and man, it was similar type of results. Coming out of it cold, I was 0.1 seconds faster per string than what I'd been shooting previously with my other gun. The other interesting part is, and you and I talked a little bit about it earlier, is I had so much confidence in that gun. I was shooting some low 1.6s and some high 1.5s, and I just don't shoot them that fast. That's what I shoot my rifles in. So it'll be interesting with a little bit more practice, a little bit more time, and a little bit more confidence to see if I can shoot roundabout in, that 6.4 range, somewhere in there. But if I can do that with this gun, oh my goodness. So it's the gun runs like a demon. It looks fantastic, and it's an awesome gun. But it goes back to the conversation about what's better, heavy or light, and so it kind of depends on you. And we talked a little bit about the shooter tendency, and you and I've joked about it before. You get up there with a handgun, it's like, grip the gun. Okay, yeah. Are you ready? Stand by. Yep, I'm ready now because I'm going to grip the gun. And that's one of my tendencies, man. We all have them. If you don't know what yours is, come down and see me, and I'll tell you what yours is. It's me gripping the gun with a handgun. It's always been that way, and for whatever reason. So despite me reminding myself, having a little bit more weight in my hands, whether it's the Legion, and I, took that out and put it through its paces. The other day, I got my Red Hill tactical holster, which, man, those things should be illegal. Those things are so good. They're almost, to me, it's as fast as just a regular race holster.
Yeah.
You loosen up the tension a little bit and take that baby out of there. And, I was shooting my Legion in practice. Oh, man, I can only hope I have close, similar times to that at, my next local match or major match that I shoot with it, because I had so much confidence in that gun. But it's interesting, similar grip angle to my CWA, the 2011 style. They felt very, very similar. Now when the buzzer goes off, I got to take it out of a holster. But they, having that type of feel in a handgun, I love it. I know there's a couple other people out there. Kurt Grimes probably already stopped listening because he's all about, making stuff as light as possible. And him and I think we'll just have to agree to disagree on this one.
Well, I think
may not be for everybody, though,
Well, and that's a really good point, because I think going out there and saying, well, this game is fast, I need the lightest gun possible, or I'm a USPSA shooter, I need the heaviest gun possible. You have to get out there and do it. And the one thing that I know that I've been able to do, and I've done it with you, and I've done it with a lot of other people, and people have done it for me, is shoot somebody else's gun. See what it feels like.
Absolutely.
I didn't shoot the Legion, but my neighbor has one, and he let me borrow it and hold it, and I, immediately fell in love with it. I said, this is going to be perfect for Steel Challenge. And you alluded to something in the second episode or second installment of the blog post you wrote, where you talked about how your grip weakens during the stage.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I shot with a number of people this weekend and shooting pistols, and we all joked that most times for a right-handed shooter, when you miss, it's your left hand's fault.
Right.
Because you weren't gripping the gun.
Sure.
And the same thing holds true for rimfire. And, the next time any of the listeners are out there and you're shooting, whether you're in practice or whether you're shooting a match, and you start missing high or low, it's probably because your grip. And it could be left and right, because, again, if you're going to get that twist. And, again, the classic, if you go up to a target and all the shots are low left, you can pretty much figure they were shooting a Glock.
With the 10-pound trigger pull.
Yeah, it is. Again, I was talking with some of the kids that I've been training, and they said, well, when I pulled the trigger, the sights are on the target. And I said, yeah, but where are the sights when the bullet leaves the barrel?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. Well, clearly they weren't on sight. And we talked about it with Shannon and other people. And I said, if you could hold that gun out there with two fingers and the gun perfectly sighted in, and you were able to pull the trigger and not disturb the sights, do you think you'd hit the target? And they always say no. Well, yeah, because the gun's going to bounce. But the stronger you can put that grip on there and keep that barrel at the alignment for keeping the target in sight, got a much better chance of hitting the target.
Sure, sure. So let's talk about Colby and his 25-pound gun. See what happened there, Jeff? It just got heavier as the podcast went on.
Well, is this the same one that he shot at the World Speed Shoot?
Oh, it certainly is.
So he's shooting for Volquartsen. Tell us about the gun.
Man, it was so he was behind us, and at the World Rimfire match, there was a couple times where, let's just say, we had a little extra time on our hands. So Colby had his he was showing somebody, I don't even know who it was, Plankster or somebody like that, his gun. It was at the safe area at the stage rack. I said, hang on a second, Colby, keep that bad boy out. Let's see what's going on here. He's like, man, he said, you want to check it out? I said, heck yeah. He said, go ahead. I picked up that gun, Jeff. I swear to goodness, it was like a 10-pound, like picking up a 10-pound weight, probably even heavier. And he says, oh yeah, it's 8 pounds or something. I think the stock is 8 pounds. And it is a Volquartsen made stock. I think Scott made it specifically for him. And I don't know if it's a bench rest or whatever type of stock. What I will say about the stock, it really is a work of art. And the reason why I say that is the adjustment of the length of pole and the comb on the stock was very, very well done. So congratulations. I mean, it was a very, very, very nice stock.
So I've seen that kind of stock on the Volquartsen site before. They may have done something special for Colby, but that is clearly a more of a precision stock than it is for a classic steel challenge.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, Jeff, maybe I'll get one of those and play around. I think they're like $700 or $800. So I figured, you know what? We'll put that one on the back burner for now. I'm not that interested in playing around with it. But it looked like it had a carbon fiber barrel, and Scott and I and Colby and I have talked about this before. Colby likes a little bit of the weight a little bit back, and so for the last couple of years he's been running a steel receiver instead of the ultra or super lightweight, I think is what he calls it, the aluminum receiver. So he runs the steel receiver, which I get, but once that gun, I see a lot of value in it because it's all the weight is back in your shoulder. I think if you can lighten up that stock a little bit, I think they're onto something, just because the gun for being heavy, I wouldn't want to shoot it all day, but the gun for being that heavy pivots extremely quickly. I was surprised. Maybe need to take a little bit of weight out of the forend and, adjust it that way. But it was heavier than what it looks for sure. But again, I can't say it enough that, picking that gun up and transitioning a little bit, the gun spun on you pretty quick. I mean, it was surprisingly how quick that it moved. And I think having that level of adjustment out there, hopefully there's some other stock manufacturers that make them more adjustable than just the plain wood ones. I know there's a couple other options out there, but I know some people are working on it to make it like an infinite type adjustment, or 3-inch length of pole or 3-inch comb rise or whatever, because that's one of the biggest complaints I get from people is they can't find a stock that fits their face, especially fat face like mine.
Isn't the stock that Billy Striplin is building for the Buckmarks, isn't that highly adjustable?
Man, I'm telling you what. So Rhonda Jones received delivery of her Buckmark rifle from Billy Striplin, and I was like, you know what? Look, I said, Rhonda, can I touch it? She's like, Steve,
not being creepy. This isn't being creepy.
She says, when you say it that slow and soft, it does sound kind of creepy, Steve. So yes, you may. Love you, Rhonda. So I picked it up, and similar type concept, but just a heck of a lot lighter. And Billy's made a couple of enhancements since he made Grant's gun a while ago, and that gun, the same type of thing. I think it's a carbon fiber barrel, but all the weight is back towards you, and I think that gun's right around 4 pounds, 4.25, somewhere in there. So it's on the lighter side, but all the weight is back towards you, and so I think I'm about 12 months into a 24-month wait. So I'll be getting one at some point. But that gun, in same type of adjustment. It's got a length of pole adjustment, on the butt stock, and then You can adjust it up and down. It's not infinite, but it's pretty significant either direction. But Billy, I mean, the guy's the mad scientist, man. He makes some high quality stuff, and I'm not sure how much. Rhonda said, well, I just wanted one. I'm like, Rhonda, can I shoot it? And she's like, no, Steve, I'm probably just going to hang on to it. I'm not going to shoot it. I said, no, you got to shoot that gun. So, yeah, you may see Jenna sporting it next year or something. I don't know, but
Nice.
it's same type of concept, though. The weight is back towards your shoulder, and the gun pivots so fast, so it's unfair that Grant shoots that gun.
Well, it's interesting, too, because I don't want to say we're necessarily in the golden age of guns, but there's a lot of new concepts coming out now. You look back, PCC is still a very young platform. And I mean, when they started out, it was like, how can we make this AR shoot 9mm? And now you've got companies that are, JP and many others that are, putting out precision pieces of equipment. And now taking it to the next level with, the short stroke systems, trigger systems, barrel systems. I mean, it just amazes me, where we're going and what are we going to see, in the future.
Yeah, there's a lot of smart people working on some cool stuff. And, outside of the shootability stuff that we've talked about, I mean, if you go out on social media, there's a guy, Elsie, that with EWD Designs, he's making some cool grips. He sent me a set of titanium grips. I think they're right around $350 a piece, but he calls them like a Velcro style, and I put them on my my 1911 for my CWA. Love those grips, and he's now going to offer an aluminum set. But he's got a bunch of customized colors. He works with Daryl Ralph at DDR, making custom colors and designs, and there may or may not be a set that's going to have a logo on them pretty soon. But, it's just these guys are, you see some of these, there's a company called, Optimum Manufacturing. They're out of North Carolina. They're, creating or milling Damascus slides for 1911s. And, it's crazy what people are doing nowadays. And it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. But go over to see Brian Conley with Hunter's HD Gold at any match. He's got a slew of guns, and him and I were on the phone tonight talking about what's exciting going on in 2020, and he's got a couple of new ones that one he took delivery of today. It's an open gun. I'll leave it at that. And then he's got a couple of others that are coming in that are just all tricked out, customized. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Well, what you should do, Steve, is go to a match and tell Brian you forgot your gun, because those guns aren't just for show.
Oh yeah.
If you have problems with a gun and you need a replacement, and the range master approves it, you can borrow one of Brian's guns. And I've seen it happen. Not 100% sure. I'm like 99% sure that at the World Speed Shoot, I think Luigi shot one of Brian's guns.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, I'm not sure if anybody's going to be mad at me telling this story, but hey, you know what? We're all friends here. Oh, so at the, World Rimfire match here a couple of weeks ago, we're out at dinner, chilling, hanging out, and catching up with, like 50 of our closest friends. And, Billy's like, hey, did Grant tell you what happened to his gun? So, I walked over to Grant and smacked him. I said, what happened to your gun? He shot out the barrel, so it had over 100,000 rounds on it. So at like 15 yards, man, it couldn't hold like a 10-inch group.
Oh, jeez.
So I was like, holy cow. I said, what are you going to do, Billy? He said, well, I don't really have an extra, but you know what I'm going to do? I said, what's that? And so now I'm going to switch the story to the other perspective. So I was talking to Brian Conley with Hunter's HD Gold. He said, you never guess what that Billy Striplin did.
Did he repossess the gun?
No. Oh, it's better than that. Jeff, are you sitting down, Jeff?
I am.
So he says, yeah, Billy came up to me and said, Grant, shot out the barrel of his, Browning Buckmark rifle and da-da-da. I want to know if I could, if Billy could borrow mine for Grant to shoot. And I said, yeah, that's cool. He said, no, Steve, you don't understand. I said, what's that? He said, Billy literally stripped my gun put the parts on Grant's gun, and then put my gun back together. And Billy says, "Hey, Brian, you may not want anybody to shoot that."
Oh, that's classic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's classic. Yeah. Not. Yeah. He needs a not for competition use sticker on it.
That's right. Yeah.
Showroom only.
A little sticker that says, "Not this one."
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Anyway, so that's the heavy versus light. It's
I think it was good. It was a good conversation.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, you like I said, try different guns, talk to people, see what you like. A lot of it is personal preference. I know when I first started shooting and we got to meet, you were all about the heavy JP.
Yeah.
Because that's what you knew.
Absolutely.
And again, I think the key is don't just assume that heavy or light. Try it out. Talk to friends. Shoot their guns. Shoot Brian's guns. And try it out and see what you can do.
Bring your Allen head wrench set with you.
That's right. Yes. Just don't shoot the rifle. Or you can shoot it. Just don't expect to hit anything.
The last point about this entire conversation, and I may have talked about it in the first article, and I know I've talked about it before in my blog post, but to make sure that you get a gun that is reliable. So who cares how light or heavy it is or anything like that? If it doesn't go bang every single time, or it's okay. They're man-made machines and all that kind of stuff. So you will have a failure at some point, just like the conversation, if you get 100,000 rounds out of a barrel, nobody's going to be mad and say, "Oh, that barrel is a piece of junk." No, it's just, these things wear. And so if you're just getting started, get yourself a 2245 light or a Victory or a Buckmark or something like that. And then, Tandem Cross makes some great upgrades. And then my opinion is, as soon as you know that you want to do this on some sort of serious level, try to buy the best gun that you can afford. And, there's a lot of rifle guys out there, PCCs. I do still think that whether I'm sponsored by JP or not, they make the best PCC out of the market because they just, they're all engineered. So every piece goes together the way that's supposed to together and it all works. And I'm not discounting other PCCs out there because I'm sure there's some other great ones. And same thing with rifles. I mean, there's some great rifle manufacturers out there, but try to get something that's somewhat, custom, 22 or 1022 off the shelf, with a 5-pound trigger pull, that'll get you somewhere, but then invest in the right types of guns. And there's a couple high level 1022 makers out there making some good stuff. And then, same thing with pistols. There's only a couple people out there that are making custom production
2211s.
2211s or 22 handguns. There's only a couple of them out there. You got really two choices as far as I could see it, and Chet's relatively new on the market. But if you want to buy a gun because you're not as technically inclined as I am, and I'm not that technically inclined, you're either going to go get a Volquartsen Scorpion if you like that type of gun. Scott's a great guy, does a lot for the sport, and his guns run. Or if you like the 1911 platform or the 2011 platform, Chet's selling a lot of guns right now, and because off the shelf, that gun is, it's got all the tricks to it too. It's got a, double undercut handguard. It's got, a thumb safety. It's got a nice mag well and the recessed mainspring that gets your grip up just a little bit higher. He's got a lot of those cool custom features that you can buy like any other high dollar, 2011 custom open pistol. So there's a couple of great options out there, but, get started in it, find something that you like. And then to your point, Jeff, try stuff and make sure it runs, and you're going to be happy shooting this game.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter how much money you spend on your gun. It doesn't matter how fancy it looks. It doesn't matter how many parts you put on it. If it doesn't go bang, you want to trade it for something else.
Absolutely.
So,
well, good discussion, Jeff.
Absolutely, Steve. Hey, you know what? We still got that little bit of time here. Why don't you give out that coupon code for rangestore.net?
Yeah, if you need some goodies, use discount code STPodcast10 for 10% off out on rangestore.net. And remember, if you got a home range where you go through a lot of paint, or if you're a club or you're a match director and you go through a lot of paint, set it and forget it. I know we talked about that last time.
Absolutely.
get
the auto renewal program. It's
it's
amazing. We're signed up and ready to go.
5% off and free shipping, and shipping can be pretty expensive nowadays. So give that a shot.
Excellent. Well, Steve, I hope to see you soon. And I guess that's it.
Have a good night, Jeff.
Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.